Hello. Hello. I'm Sian. I can't remember the last time I had sex. I blame the Rohypnol. It's my own fault, really. I joined this internet dating site, and the name itself should have given it away. WeDrugYou.com. It hasn't put me off internet dating, though, because it's a good way to meet men. But some of the men on these sites, they don't do themselves any favours. There's the photographs for a start. There's the ones where they're wearing cycling helmets so you can't see whether they're bald. The ones where they're wearing sunglasses so you can't see their eyes. And then when you can see their faces, it's because they've taken selfies with camera phones. I think that means they haven't got any friends who'll take photographs for them. But really you think when they'd spent all that money on a subscription, they might pay out a bit more for decent photographs. And underneath what they write, looking for a soulmate. There is no such thing. And not only that, Mr. Right doesn't exist. I should know. I've been internet dating for a year now. I've met around 30 men. And I've only managed to find a few Mr. Got Some Good points. So for now I've got Mr. Handy, who's useful around the house, Mr. Chef, who's good in the kitchen, and Mr. Sexy, who's good in bed. And then there's Mr. Funny, who makes me laugh, Mr. Presentable, who I can introduce to my friends, and Mr. Cultured, who appreciates the arts. Yes, I know that makes 6, but a girl has to have a night off to recharge her batteries. And that's only if Mr. Sexy hasn't been coming up to scratch. Actually, I might, if Mr. Disgustingly Rich turned up, I might actually just settle for him. Well, I might forgive all his faults if I could keep on seeing the chaps who fill in the gaps. Anyway, I have a confession to make. The very first man that I met on an internet date, he could have been Mr. Perfect, but I paid for 6 months subscription and I didn't want to waste it. For a little while I was going out for a man who was into bondage. He asked me to tie him up and tantalise him. So I handcuffed him to the headboard, and when he was lying there naked and aroused, I took a photograph of him. Then I held the camera just out of his reach and I said, "Shall I send this photograph to your boss or will you?" Then there was another man, he wanted me to treat him like a baby. So I put him in a nappy, put him in the cot, and then I left him upstairs to cry while I watched Strictly Come Dancing and the X Factor. I'm not completely heartless though, because after about an hour I took him up a bottle. And that's not true, I was watching Taggart. I don't like Strictly. Now, you probably might realise from this, I'm interested in sex, but I'm not desperate for it. A lot of men think that divorced women are desperate for sex. Well, I am desperate, but it's not for sex, it's for a laugh, some good conversation and some decent foreplay. Because if I wanted sex without foreplay, I'd still be married. I'm not getting married again, because there's no point making one man miserable when you can make plenty of men happy. I'm a teacher, and when I was married, my husband used to complain that I spoke to him like he was one of my pupils. "Give me that knife now and sit down." I too was working with young offenders in those days. I probably should explain that. Anyway, nowadays, if I meet a man who I click with, which is generally referred to as chemistry, I have to decide whether to stick to the 3-date rule, which means these days on the 3rd date you're expected to sleep with somebody. Now when I was a teenager, the furthest I'd go on a 3rd date was letting a boy in those days, try and unhook my bra. And if he did succeed, it was a disappointment to both of us, to be honest. And then when I hit my 20s, the 3rd date could often end in sex, and so I had to prepare myself accordingly. In my knicker drawer I had 3 sets. They were the dead cert, the no chance, and you never know your luck. The dead cert were the pretty lacy ones, you know, a bit of string round the back, sometimes crutchless, you know, if I thought I was going to score. Then there was the no chance knickers, which were the big baggy grey ones. Girls will know these as period knickers. You wouldn't want anyone to see those. And then there was you never know your luck, which were not my best, but you know, they were quite acceptable. Sometimes I used to wear my no chance knickers to stop me having sex with someone that I knew I shouldn't. because the fear of those being exposed would stop me taking any clothes off at all, and in fact was quite an effective contraceptive. This leads me on to safe sex. Nowadays, I know that any man I go to bed with will have a sexual history. If he didn't, I'd be quite concerned. But when I was a teenager, when I first started having sex, nobody wore condoms, all the girls were on the pill, and we'd never heard of AIDS. If you did catch a little something, it was soon cleared up by a visit to the clinic. But now, of course, even though more older people are getting STDs than ever before, and condoms, I understand, are thinner than ever before, you chaps, you still want to ride bareback. Have you got a death wish or something? Never mind, I don't know where you've been. You don't know where I've been. No, so if you don't want to rub her up, just pass me the vibrator and buzz off. Because then at least I'd get some sleep afterwards. Anyway, I'm sure I don't want to send you to sleep, so I'm going to stop now. Thank you very much. I've been Charlotte.
Ladies and gents, September show!